Hello everyone. My group and I have chosen to do our project on other sources of electricity. What exactly are some other sources of electricity, you all may be asking yourselves? Well, while most electricity is generated with steam turbines using fossil fuels, or nuclear, biomass, geothermal, and solar thermal energy, some of the other major methods of generating electricity include gas, hydro, and wind turbines, as well as using solar photovoltaics. Next, I will be diving a little deeper into one of the other sources of electricity we all know as solar power. Solar power, also known as solar electricity, is the conversion of energy from sunlight into electricity, either directly using photovoltaics or indirectly using concentrated solar power. Solar panels use the photovoltaic effect to convert light into an electric current. Some concentrated solar power systems use lenses or mirrors and solar tracking systems to focus a larger area of sunlight to a direct location referred to as a hotspot. Solar power all began with Edmond Becquerel, a young physicist working in France, when in 1839 observed and discovered the photovoltaic effect, a process that produces a voltage or electric current when exposed to light or radiant energy. A few years later, Augustin Mouchet, a French mathematician, was inspired by the physicist's work and began to register patents for solar-powered engines in the 1860s. From France to the USA, inventors were excited by the patents of the mathematician so much that in 1883, New York inventor Charles Fritz created the first solar cell by coating selenium with a thin layer of gold. It was reported that the selenium module produced a current that was continuous, constant, and of considerable force. The cell achieved an energy conversion rate of 1 to 2% efficiency, while most modern solar cells we use today work around 15 to 20% efficiency. Charles Fritz started the beginning of photovoltaic solar panel innovation that day. Last year, in 2023, solar power generated 5% of the world's total electricity, compared to just 1% in 2015, when the Paris Agreement to limit climate change was signed. In 2022, the International Energy Agency's World Energy Outlook report predicted that solar energy would account for a mere 25% of the electricity produced by 2050. The two key factors being its affordability and swift rate of construction will help drive the rapid expansion of solar energy. There are multiple different types of solar panels, all made with different materials, which in turn makes some panels more efficient than others, with one of the worst efficiencies being the amorphous silicon panel, having a low 6 to 8% efficiency compared to one of the best types of panels, the PERC, or passivation emitter rear contact cell, that has a 20% or better efficiency. Let's take a look at how the PERC panel is made and where it is used the most. PERC panels are modified silicon cells that have an additional layer on the back. Because this extra layer is reflective, it is able to send unused light back across the N-type and P-type junctions to generate more energy. Better yet, this reflective surface also helps to reduce rear recombination and prevent longer wavelengths from becoming heat that would otherwise impair the cell's performance. PERC panels are mostly used commercially for telecoms, security systems, street lighting, signage, and now are also being used for almost all solar panel applications due to new discoveries. Next, I would like to introduce to you one of the most widely used other sources of electricity in Canada, hydroelectricity.
There are many benefits and reasons to switch to a renewable energy source, some of the main ones being that it provides environmental sustainability. By transitioning from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources like water, wind, and hydroelectric power reduces greenhouse gas emissions, mitigating climate change. This shift helps decrease air and water pollution, leading to cleaner environments and healthier communities. Unlike fossil fuels, which are finite, renewable energy sources are abundant and widely distributed. Relying on renewable energy enhances our energy security by reducing dependence on imported fuels and lessening the vulnerability of energy infrastructure to disruptions, such as supply chain issues or conflicts in oil-producing regions. This energy security is becoming very sought after by many other countries globally. Switching to renewable energy sources also provides substantial economic growth. Investing further in renewable energy stimulates economic growth by fostering innovation, attracting investment, and creating new job opportunities. The renewable energy sector has the potential to generate employment across various skill levels, from manufacturing and installation to research and development, contributing to long-term economic resilience and longevity. Canada has been using hydroelectric power for many years and continues to enhance its existing facilities and install new ones. Hydroelectric power takes the energy of flowing water to generate electricity. It relies on the principle of converting the kinetic energy of water into mechanical energy, which is then transformed into electrical energy through generators. This process involves constructing dams or diversion structures to control the flow of water and create a reservoir or a channel, allowing water to be directed through turbines. While hydroelectric is a great alternative to fossil fuels, there are still many environmental considerations to take into account. While hydroelectric power is a renewable and clean energy source, the construction of dams and reservoirs may alter river ecosystems, disrupt fish habitats, and affect water quality. Therefore, it is essential to carefully assess and mitigate environmental and social consequences of hydroelectric developments and explore alternative approaches such as small-scale hydro projects that minimize environmental impact, while still harnessing the power of flowing water. In Canada, the future of hydroelectric power remains promising as the country continues to prioritize renewable energy sources. With abundant water resources and existing hydroelectric infrastructure, Canada is well positioned to further expand its hydroelectric capacity. Continued investment in modernization, efficiency improvements, and sustainable development practices will play a key role in ensuring that hydropower remains a cornerstone of Canada's clean energy portfolio.
Another source of electricity today is known as wind-generated electricity. Wind power was first taken advantage of by farmers in a mechanical sense. They often erected windmills on their property before the implementation of electricity for a pulley system, which would raise and lower buckets of water for wells. The use of windmills and turbines for electricity started becoming common in the early 1900s for farm use as well. This time, the blades were mechanically coupled to generators to aid farmers in having access to electricity varying locations on their land. On a large scale, turbines are the most common way to harness wind to produce electricity. The force and direction of the wind is dependent on three factors. The first factor is the heat of the sun unevenly heating the atmosphere. Because air is a fluid, the uneven heating creates convection currents of heated and cooled air, which causes wind. The second major factor is the topography of the Earth. The elevations and dips in the Earth's surface can change the strength and direction of wind due to its aerodynamics and resistances. Lastly, the rotation of the Earth affects the strength of the wind as well as the motion of the tide, which hand in hand goes with wind. The wind is converted into electricity in a relatively simple manner. As wind passes over the blades of the turbine, there is an uneven pressure exerted, as displayed here, across the face of the turbine blades. This pressure causes the blades to rotate. An example to try at home would be focusing on the flow of water around your hands when treading water in a pool. As the blades rotate, they will typically experience rotational speed around 18 rotations per minute. Unfortunately, this is not fast enough to directly couple the generator, so there will be a gearbox that will convert the RPM of the blades on the rotor to a more generator-friendly speed. A typical ratio for this conversion is 1 to 100. That means that each rotation of the blades will rotate the generator shaft 100 times. The benefits of this source of electricity are clean energy, taking advantage of natural resource without directly impacting or hindering the resource. A small turbine farm can supplement electricity for up to 900 homes, and each turbine has a relatively small footprint for the amount of electricity it produces. The disadvantages of this source of electricity are that the turbines are relatively costly to build, and they're not very attractive in urban areas. The construction can be intrusive to farmers in their fields or wherever these turbines will be erected, and retired turbines are often left standing or are disassembled and put in landfills. The worst disadvantage is that production solely depends on inconsistent wind that we have no control over. A less talked about form of electricity used in Canada is geothermal. Geothermal energy is using a heat from the earth to create other forms of electricity. Geothermal energy was first taken advantage of in the form of heat rather than electricity. Archaeologists have documented evidence of humans using hot springs over 10,000 years ago for both ceremonial and bathing purposes. It was first used commercially to produce electricity in Larderello, Italy, in 1913. This method of harvesting electricity is very uncommon in Canada due to natural occurrence factors, but is heavily relied on in California, especially on the coast. Geothermal energy may be harvested in three typical ways. The first is the dry steam system. This is where the heat straight from hot underground water reservoirs is tapped into. The pressure and heat of the water forces steam up the pipes. These vapors push past a turbine, which forces a generator to spin and produce electricity. This method is very uncommon because only Old Faithful and a handful of other geysers can produce this magnitude of steam. Old Faithful is protected by Yellowstone National Park and therefore cannot be tapped for energy. Another similar method is called flash steam geothermal operation. Flash steam method employs the water in an underground hot springs. These hot wells are tapped into directly, and the heat and natural pressure force the water up the pipes. As the pressure decreases and the water travels up the pipes, it vaporizes. The vaporized water, in the form of steam, is then fed past the turbines to turn a generator, and the excess non-vaporized water is then drained back into the well that it originated from. The third method is similar to our thermal process labs, known as binary cycle geothermal. In this process, the hot water is pumped up and put through a heat exchanger, which in turn heats a fluid with a lower boiling point and pushes vapor through a turbine in a separately closed system to rotate a generator and produce electricity. The pros and cons of geothermal energy are: the benefits are that it's a nearly infinite resource as we're relying on the planet's naturally occurring heat. It has potential to produce enough power to supplement half of the United States, and it does not depend on the weather like wind does. Disadvantages to this type is that construction is more intricate, placement requires significant research, and it may not be practical as location depends on where the edges of tectonic plates of the Earth are. We hope you appreciated our presentation for what it teaches you about other sources of electricity. We appreciate your attendance, and thank you very much for interacting with our slideshow today.